Hey garden gals and guys, it's Steph with Tiny's Garden, and today I'm bringing you 3 fails and 3 successes for seed starting so far this season. Seed starting has gotten underway now. We're not quite into the very busy part of it. However, a lot of things have started, some cold hardy annuals, things like that. So let me tell you, I've already failed. I feel like with a lot of beginners, there's this, what's the word? Trepidation about starting to try seeds because you're worried about killing plants. We all kill plants. All of us, every single one, the pros, the amateurs, everyone in between. It just is part of it. So know that if you are starting out, and even if you're not starting out, if you've been doing this for years, you probably know this by now, but it's okay that you kill plants. Now, it can be, to be very dramatic, traumatizing how some of these happen. My first fail is a little bit like that, but in all seriousness, don't not start or try gardening because you're worried about killing plants. Don't even factor it in. It's gonna happen, and move on and start. Without further ado, let's go ahead and check out this list. This first one is a doozy, folks. I had to take it on my iPhone because of the time that it happened. It was right before bed and I was doing some last minute watering, and I'll let you see the rest. I came to empty my water tray that my Iceland poppies and cherry globe poppies were on right before bed, and something out of a nightmare, pretty much. We all have flops, we all have fails, am I right? Yes. Looks like I'm going shopping for some more Iceland poppy seeds tomorrow. Needless to say, that Iceland poppy fumble of a tray was disappointing, but what do? You get back on the horse. So I started a new tray of Iceland poppies shortly after, and they have germinated, but I'll be honest, I don't really know exactly what I'm doing with Iceland poppies. I know they're not super easy, they're fragile, so I am doing my best, but I'll show you what I've got so far. Here are some botanical interest ones that I started, and on this side, the germination is not as good as the other side, but that's also because the other side I went really heavy-handed. I knew it was probably too heavy. You can see how they're all very close together here, but at least they're coming up. So I've got to go through and do some major thinning, but if you have any tips and tricks on what to do next, obviously next time I'm going to sow less in each cell and really take my time, but hey, we're gonna go somewhere with them, just preferably not on the floor again. One success I'm counting as a big plus this season is my Lizianthus, those fastidious ladies. So I planted these on January 13th and 14th, so we are in week 5 now for their growth. And I counted back on February 7th, and I had 74 seedlings that had germinated and were visible above the surface. Today is February 18th, and I have counted 68. So I've lost 6, but I'm still counting that as a huge success because they're looking pretty healthy, and I planted 4 into the ground last year. So we're coming along, my friends. Let me take you closer so you can see what one of my trays looks like. Here's 2 of my 5 trays that I'm growing. And you can see if we come closer, the ones that have germinated are getting some leaves on them. There's a couple more right there. They're looking pretty good. Some more over in this tray. They're not super itty bitty anymore, except I still have several that are. Like there's one there you can see that's tiny. So far, the Lizzies are hanging in there pretty well overall. The ones that seem to be dying are getting too dry, which is ironic because with Lizianthus, they usually want to be drying out a little bit between waterings. And I think that I've got to find the balance of not watering enough and watering too much. But overall, it's better this year. So if I see that they're dry, I don't hesitate, I water them. In fact, these are pretty dry, so I need to water them right after I take this shot. So far, thumbs up for Lizianthus. Just remember to give yourself a lot of grace with this flower. She's tough. I know some people think she's easy, and I wish I did. I think it takes some work to get her to grow into the beautiful creature she is. So if you're having a rocky road with her, give yourself a lot of grace, and you'll learn as you go. You learn from your failures. And now this year, I'm counting it as a success so far. Next up on our fail list, we have these guys that are in timeout over here, but they're also on the success list, which I'll show you after this. So these are my sweet peas. These sweet peas are the first sweet peas that I sowed on January 31st. I've learned so much through this process of doing something different this year, which is I had good germination on all these. Crap from last year came up, the new one came up, but I really wanted to push these guys as far as their cold tolerance. So I saw, I think, something on Instagram of a couple UK people taking them out to the greenhouse and really growing them in there from germination. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it. So on the 7th of February, which would have been a week later, is when I took them out to the greenhouse. And they did well for the first week. They were fine. They weren't putting on a ton of growth, but rather they were developing roots underneath, which is okay. I'm fine with that. However, then we got a big cold snap. I'm in zone 5B in the Chicago suburbs, so I knew it was a possibility that it would happen, and it did. The following week, on the 14th of February, I went out there and they looked very sad. They froze. It was too cold. But what I know now is I can't do that. I can't move them out that early to my greenhouse, which is actually not a greenhouse. It's a cold frame. So that also would probably have something to do with it. Perhaps if I had some heat, it might have worked. But that's my story on the fail part of these sweet peas. So the flip side of this, the success side, is that I did plant other sweet peas shortly after I planted that first round that I put in the greenhouse, and I kept them inside to ensure that I would have a good crop if those in the greenhouse didn't work out. So these beauties here were sown on February 3rd, so a few days after the first round that I sowed, and they're doing beautiful. They've just been under the grow light the whole time. I kept these under the grow light. I didn't take them outside at all. They've just been germinating and growing in a safe environment inside. They could actually be in a cooler place. My basement doesn't get that cold. It sits around 72 to 74, so it's pretty much the same as upstairs. If I could, I would ideally put these somewhere a little cooler because I don't want them to get too big before I put them out later, but I'll pitch them out in their trays when they're ready, and they should be just fine. The only variety that I'm noticing here that is a little more bare is the, oh, here we go, pronunciation. Sweet pea bujoli? Sweet pea bujoli? And it's a botanical interest one. I'm noticing I have less germination with that one, but still 5 or 6 of them. So I am pleased with that, and we will take it. The next batch here was grown in my root trainers, which I just received recently. And these were sown on the 10th, so just a week and a day ago, and they're starting to really poke through as well. But so far, so good there too. My last fail comes right over my shoulder there in that little planter, the begonias. These I planted the same day as my Lizianthus, and I knew they were going to take a long time because it said that on the package, but they are slow, like slower than Lizianthus slow. So as I was growing them, I wasn't watering them enough, and I ended up having about 2 teeny little bitty, but I thought maybe I could save, and I quote unquote tried. Here's the result. If you look over to the right side, you can see a little bit of green. That's one of them, and the other one you can't even see because it's buried with soil now. It is so tiny, and they're tough to grow, and I just don't think they're going to be worth the time. So that's all I have to show for them, and needless to say, I think I'm going to pass on those next year. And my last but most exciting success so far is my snapdragons. All 218 of them that I've planted are germinating. Let's take a closer look. These were planted on February 11th, so it has been a week, and they are coming up so nicely. You can see the little ones there, those seedlings. I haven't thinned yet. I'll go through and thin. But I'm so excited about this. And as I've said before, these were some of my favorite in the garden last year. So I'm growing a bunch of new different varieties, which should be beautiful. It's terribly exciting. And I've learned something from this year's process already. Up here are my other 2 flats of snaps that I started the next day after those that I just showed you. And you can see up here, there's a heating mat under this first tray, but not under this second tray. Here's what I've learned. So this tray over here is the one that was actually sitting on the heating mat during the germination process, and you can see about 50% have germinated. So I just took the lid off of this guy today, which is why he's not on the heating mat anymore, and this guy was the one that was sitting off of the heating mat, and you can see there's no germination yet. I'm not worried. I think the only thing is it was not on the heating mat, and it's due for a watering. But all of the other 3 that have germinated have been on heating mats and are doing excellent. So heating mats for snapdragons, I feel, is paramount. So I've just poured water into this bottom tray here. I'm gonna bottom water these, make sure they get a nice moist base again, and put them back on the heating mat. And I'm thinking in a few days we'll have germination here. So that'll do it for this video. Those are a few of my fails and successes at the beginning of this seed starting season. I hope that was helpful to see, and just to remember, give yourself a lot of grace. It happens to all of us. Something usually goes wrong at least once during the season for anyone. And never fear failing, because usually you're going to learn something from it. Thanks for watching. I'll keep you updated for the rest of the season. And if you haven't, please subscribe to follow along here on our journey, and we'll see you in the next one. Happy planting! Bye.